this panel discussion, we have top marketing decision makers who will throw light on how they are leveraging Martech to foray into this market segment. To begin with, let me start with Neelima, ladies first. So, what do you feel? Is this the next frontier for marketers, tier 2, tier 3 markets in India? You have a mic there.
Thank you firstly for having me here and asking on these points. Personally, I feel it is not now that it is the best time or most important part to be for tier 2 and tier 3. It's been always. And India being such a large heterogeneous market with variety of towns and cities, tier 2 and tier 3 has been driving growth for the country and economy for, I think, more than 2 decades now. It is just that a lot of marketing strategies which were very prudent, very good for metropolitan and tier 1 cities is no longer so applicable for tier 2 and tier 3. And that is for the simple fact that consumers in tier 2 and tier 3 are also now equally aware, thanks to the technology, thanks to pandemic which happened in between, which disrupted the consumer behavior and the consumption pattern, and the accessibility and availability of the product category and segments which has happened over the period of time. Now, because they are now more aware and they are more, I would say, they can afford, and also they also seek convenience and accessibility of all the amenities which were present earlier for only tier 1 and metro because of accessibility issue, is now because of omni-channel also present into tier 2 and tier 3 towns. By basic that fact, I think companies have to change their strategies. Don't just take the same strategy and apply into tier 2 and tier 3. Apply the thinking behind consumer understanding for tier 2 and tier 3. Solve for the problem which they are looking into, the product, services, technology, benefits, which we can bring as a marketeer to the consumers, true to their requirement. At Luminous, we do a lot on that front because solar has been, my company does inverter, battery, and solar. And one of the biggest change which has happened is also because of policy and the government coming up with Surya Ghar Yojana. You'll be surprised, the biggest beneficiary and demand which is coming for Surya Ghar Yojana is from tier 2 and tier 3 towns.
Wonderful.
So that makes and shifts all the marketing and brand building strategies.
Sure. Do you echo her sentiments there? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I work in a CPG company. For us, fortunately, tier 2, tier 3 rural have always been big, at least on the brands that I work on. I think what has changed is, as Neelima was pointing out, a lot of aspiration is being fueled by easy accessibility to information, right? And with that aspiration, the task is upon us as marketeers to drive accessibility to our products and services, right? And this is where marketing and tech can come in together to really unlock this massive demand that we have staring at us, right? But we also need to be mindful, and I think Shobik was talking about it, that it is not one homogeneous cohort, okay? Every tier 2, to an extent, every tier 2 city may be different from another tier 2 city. I was in Coimbatore last week, and I was being told that Madurai looks very different from a Coimbatore, and they are only hundreds of kilometers apart, right? So therefore, we need to be agile enough, and thanks to technology, we have the wherewithals to be much more specific, much more regional, much more tailored to the cultural nuances, to the beliefs, the attitudes, and behaviors of the various tier 2, tier 3 cities that we have, and therefore tailor our narratives to what people expect.
Sure. So Chandni, coming to you, India is home to 22 languages. Dialect changes every few miles. Like Shobik said, America is one country, one language, but India is very different. So how are you rethinking Martech from a Bharat standpoint? Coming from a InsurTech company. Your thoughts here. How do you, kind of adapt Martech to such a scenario?
Yeah, I'd like to borrow some conversations here and also my experience from what we have been doing for the last few years. About 80% of our business actually comes from tier 2 and 3 market, right? And insurance is not a product for the not so wealthy folks, right? Or you have to have some sort of asset ownership to really worry about protection and also worry about the health and life. Only when you have wealth you worry about all that, right? So what I'm increasingly watching, and also one latest BCG report I read, is how this is going to transform the next 10 years, right? The number of affluent households in the tier 2 and 3 are going to go up by 40%, right? Which means there is a huge headroom for consumerism to spread there, right? So although, we are watching it very closely only because we are in the business for the tier 2, 3 folks to not move to a tier 1 just for employment, right? We're in the business to give our agents, we sort of curate all the agents to sell insurance to their clients, and we build app just to give the context for everybody, right? So because that agent, is generally looking for some income generation, he struggles to find more opportunities in the tier 2, 3 market, right? And with this facility, right, that he has on his app, he's now able to, distribute multiple insurers and, sort of give what you and I have access on, right? Like you can today compare plans across 4, you have 4 underwriters, you can demand what you like, right? And it's not so easy in the small town. And I go for these field trips myself, right, to get the pulse. Really, it's so hard. It's so hard to draw that one thread that will unite India, right? You have to keep digging for, what is the motivation per user at a, granular level. So I think what works, also we spoke about how important data will be in the next few years to really make this real. That is all the work that is yet to be done, Our consumptions have moved, but our data, I think, there's a lot of headroom there for work.
Avi, like she just said, India is so different, so diverse. What works in Mumbai may not work in Meerut. So what is your strategy when you look at tier 2 and tier 3 markets from a Martech standpoint?
So first of all, I'm not sure if this is a solve, because tier 2 and tier 3 isn't really a puzzle. It's more like a story. And we need to build on the story. We need to tell the story better to tier 2 and tier 3. And also, Martech, I sometimes wonder whether it's able to even solve for Gurgaon or not. But jokes apart, for FNP, this is very close to our heart. We are in the business of delivering emotions. And on a daily basis across the country, we celebrate multiple occasions, festivals, and help people to deliver these emotions from one person to the other. While the emotion is the same, however, the expression is different. So how a person in a metro would express on a birthday or an anniversary or on even Valentine's would be different than a person who would do that in a tier 2 or a tier 3. And within that also, how the person would communicate in a Kolhapur will be different from what it would be in a Kota to what it would be in a Siliguri. And if that is different, then why should there be one brand, one communication across the country? You need to customize and personalize the communication for the consumer to make it much more relatable, to make it more relevant for that customer. So Martech really helps to contextualize the message to that customer at a n equal to 1 level. And that is where then the magic starts to happen. We look at the different consumer behaviors that are there in these different cohorts of customers, and basis that the Martech is able to personalize at scale and reach out to the customer at the right time in the right moment.
Yogesh, like everybody said, hyper localization is the name of the game. So coming from a fashion brand, how are you hyper localizing? When it comes to local traditions, customs, or even festivals at that granular level. How are you doing that?
Yeah. First of all, thanks for having me here. And this allows me to share our views as a brand. And so I've been fortunate enough to initial work with Urbanic and then now with Savannah, where we have seen both kind of a market which earlier was tier 1 focused. Now with time and essence, we have seen the tier 2 and tier 3 has the potential and is the next bigger market. So with this, how we have strategized our overall positioning and see, we have understood like how the consumer behaves, how the consumer thinks. In tier 1 especially, we anticipate the digital savvy customer speaks in English. We have to understand like how they actually shop. The tier 1 customers shop from like swiping it through, seeing multiple options, going to Amazon, seeing multiple reviews on that platform and on review sites just like Trustpilot, Glassdoor. The behavior is entirely different when we go to tier 2 cities. They take influence from a community platform like Facebook, like Instagram, and then they aspire it. And then to know about the brand and product, they go to YouTube, search about the product, search about the brand, whether they can trust the brand or not. What is their experience? Then they will call their family, friends, cousins. Are you experienced with this brand? And then they'll shop. So the behavior and the time, it is not just a click to conversion. It takes time when you go to tier 2. And that we have to understand. And that with time, I'd say we understood, we implemented our tech solutions and Martech working towards it, that it will take time. It will not convert in a day. And that is how we are trying to solve the localization or the hyper-localization for each and every area. Because just like apparel, India is a very demographic country, and then the styles and the color patterns and the wearing attributes, it's entirely differs from north to south. Hence, so each areas, because of the high-tech environment and the access to the AI, we are able to understand the deep patterns of each regional customer base, provide them, understand them, what they need, when they need, and then provide exactly what they are looking for, is how we are solving it.
Great. Coming back to you, Neelima, I mean, it's really critical to go hyper-local, but how do you actually go about it? I mean, is there a template for it? Because, the brand experience has to be conversational, personal, rather than just being a broadcast ad kind of a thing. So, if you can share some light on this, throw some light as to what is the template or some steps that, marketers can adopt to...
See, I am actually a fundamentalist on when it comes to marketing. And the true need of brands was actually to do business in the markets. So the moment you start looking at that, and the template is very simple. It starts with C and it ends with C, in my mind. And we call it as a C2C process, wherein it starts with consumer insights and understanding, whichever market. And I would not say hyper-local. Hyper-local is your execution ability. It's not a strategy, it's an execution, right? So you start with the consumer of that particular market. Let's say Madurai, let's say Salem. You have started from there. What does that consumer understanding is for that product category, that consumer segment? What is their need? What's their gap? What's their challenges? Are we solving for any need which is really a challenge which will change a behavior? And Do you have a life insight which can solve that challenge of the consumer, which will change the behavior, is the real insight which you get out of it. From there, apply it back into your segmentation, targeting, and positioning, along with the product development and the feature set which you build, and the benefit story which you talk about it. And then go back into the 4P execution, which is your product and the pricing, the price propositions which you make for that segment, the placement strategy, the retail strategy, or the omni-channel strategy, what works for that consumer to actually consume with convenience and delight is your placement, and then the promotion strategy with it. The only thing which I will add in the hyper-localization today is the cost to reach to that consumer in hyper-local is far more than actually an umbrella approach. Because now you're going down to the home. You can today create D2C brand which is directly meeting them at home. So that's the place I will say bring your profitability and ROI measurements with that. And that's the template you apply to any segment, any category. The difference is when you go to B2B, there is far more techno-commercial conversation. When you come to consumers, it's far more life insight, emotions, built with the story, which can solve a consumption behavior. So these are the two things which I would say is a template, or I would say a simple thumb rule to apply.
Gunjan, what's your take on this?
Yeah, so honestly, templates are a bit difficult to give because the moment you template it, I believe you'll structure it too much, right? As Neelima was saying, we need to look at what are the nuances of the regions and locations and try and adapt ourselves. What technology today allows us to do is adaptation and localization at scale, right? Which is not what I grew up with. So it's a big learning for us. I can at best give you two examples, or rather one big example of what we have done, okay, that kind of illustrates the point. So we have a brand called Center Fruit, and we were looking at how to reach Tier 3 and rural, okay, in our big state, which happens to be Uttar Pradesh. And one of the things we realized was voice is huge as you go down the tier, right? And we understood the power of AI any which ways. But we also understood that as you go down the tier, the use of smartphone is very limited. Okay, it's largely feature phones. So how do we supercharge a feature phone with AI capabilities? Okay? And using voice as your platform, right? And that's why we came up with one activation where if I am in one of the villages in UP, you could call a number, have a conversation, fun conversation with an AI agent, and also take part in competition, right? All seamlessly within the brand platform. Now this AI is so malleable that it converses with you in the local dialect, okay? And UP has so many dialects. I'm not talking about language, I'm talking about dialects, right? So if you call from one village, the AI can talk to you depending on the signal it's getting in the dialect of that place, versus if you go to Western UP and a village in Western UP, the dialect changes, right? So that is the level of, for want of a better word, hyper-localization we have done, and how we have supercharged, we've taken the obstacles, we've figured out these obstacles are actually opportunities for us, and how do we surpass that using technology as a solution. So that suddenly gives me scale as well as personalization, okay, within the brand umbrella. For us, because we are CPG brands, hyper-localization in terms of products is very, very difficult. So the best we can do is how can our communication reach in a way that seems a bit more native to the user. So this is just an example of how we approach some of these problems using technology as a platform.
Great. No, that's a very innovative approach that you've taken, Gunjan. Chandni, what do you think? I mean, he's leveraged voice what kind of Martech tools or solutions do you think would work for you when it comes to automating workflows, personalization, or aligning with different languages or dialects?
Yeah, see, I think one point Gunjan was saying, I quite agree. He said there is no set template, right? You don't believe your founders, don't believe anyone. Go to the field yourself to really sort of get the pulse of the market, right? What is critical is that we stop looking at hyperlocalization as a different way to deliver languages, right? It is not a language question, right? What are the right kind of questions to ask is what are the barriers to your product, right? I think the barriers in one region to another region, one cohort to another cohort, Avi was also saying that I don't know we've figured this even in Gurgaon, right? And because, every user is driven by something else, and you and I may have felt about one product differently. So I need to sort of work with, regional shared belief system versus, individual belief system, and then work with you, right? And that is the context, we would, as marketeers, really worry about, oh, is it even possible, this is a kind of granular, how do you really practically do it? It's not a conversation for this time, right? It's also a real opportunity, right? And what does it do? We've done something called as real-time personalization, right? And this was not just in Turtlement, also in a Book My Show consumer context, right? When I did a real-time view of the cinema you like, in your seat, like you generally, let's say, prefer an aisle seat. So I would just show you availability in your preferred cinema. And, when I did this over an email, my conversion went up by 5%. And it's so hard, for email conversions to go up significantly. And that was just one simple, thread that we identified, that you are not, you don't look for too many options. I know you want the same seat, the same place. You're not looking to go to newer places all the time. So I need to solve the cognitive load that is in the process and just arrive you at the cart, How can I do that better every time in every single situation I have with you is what all the learning is, And there is no stopping of learning, right? I think as we spend the last 6 years in, Turtlement doing a lot of this, studying in, we went to Surat, Indore. Now this year we are going to some 350 markets, pan-India, to do our brand campaign. Sure, what I think both the panelists said, that the reach in the tier 2, 3 market through digital is still tough. It's got a lot better in the last 5 years, last 10 years, given a digital adoption, but there is a huge headroom in the whole penetration of headsets, digitization, a lot of that, which means, we need to crack a lot of solution for what we have to be able to solve for what we don't have. Yeah.
Sure. So Avi, like Chandni said, it's not a question of different languages or dialects. It's more about the barriers or challenges that your brand per se faces. So what does your brand face in terms of challenges when you want to, tap the tier 2, tier 3 markets? And what kind of technologies do you think you would leverage to, crack this case?
So I see this as a opportunity rather than a challenge. FNP started as a humble single store shop in Delhi, which was selling flowers. It became successful because it was able to understand the pulse of the consumer in Delhi and was able to offer a product which was not available for those customers in the city. It met that demand. And I think that is what we've been able to do successfully at scale now across the country and also in other parts of the world. And the challenge comes in a bit when we talk about offline retail, because we are also a brand which is available in 300 plus offline stores. We've got our 300 stores which are there. And how do you really customize and personalize for the consumer who's there in that city, where there are multiple cohorts within? So I resonate with Chandni when she says that, there is no template. Because within a city also, there are so many types of consumer. You cannot templatize one city also. While we spoke about how Siliguri is different from a, Kota, but within Kota also there are so many cohorts of customers that are there. So the challenge, what you said, maybe the opportunity is to how do you cater to that demand at a offline level? How do you customize to that customer? However, Martech makes it much more easier for a online platform, for an online system. So it all starts with data. So then you don't have to look at a tier 1 or a tier 2. It's more of psychographic profiles. It's more of customers based on their behavior on the platform, off the platform, and so on. And then they become signals rather than tier 1, tier 2 customers. You look at the entire data. The data is the main layer which gives you the insights. The insights flow into your Martech tech stack, which could then help you to first segment the consumers, and then these segmented consumers can be reached out with a personalized message. Now the personalization can be done again using a tool. AI has now helped us to scale at a much faster level. We don't even have to look at it at a large cohort level. The cohorts can be much more smaller. The communication can be much more personal. And again, going back to our core is about festivals, about occasions, about emotions. So when it is your, partner's birthday, it is your partner's birthday. And how you would want to, communicate with your partner will be very personal to you. And if we can understand that and show you the right product at the right time, then it really changes the trust that is there on the brand. So to give you an example, Rakhi, we are the largest online platform. And we see that there is a clear difference in terms of preferences. While everybody sends Rakhi back home or from one city to the other, but there are consumer behavior or preferences that we are able to see. And the Martech stack is able to personalize the recommendation of the product to the right customer. To give you an example, in Kota, we've seen that dry fruits go very well with Rakhi. In Indore, we've seen that spiritual Rakhis, which are in the shape of Ganesha, in the shape of Kana, and so on and so forth, they work very well. We've seen in the metros that bento chocolate cakes or chocolate bars work very well on, on such festivals. And when I talk about bento, bento is a smaller cake. But smaller cakes are a bigger city phenomena. In the smaller cities, still a birthday is a celebration. You don't have small 2 or 3 people celebrating it. So the order is at least of a half kg or a kg. These are nuances which I'm telling you from a macro level, but if you can understand it at a micro level and then customize and personalize the offering that is there, then you get a WhatsApp message and you see a spiritual Rakhi when you're from Indore on top rather than a bento cake, then your conversion becomes much more higher. And that then is a job well done for a CLM person. So the Martech really helps us to get to the right customer at the right time.
Yogesh, how is Martech helping you? The kind of insights, interesting insight that he has been able to garner. What insights have you been able to gather from the stack that you use?
Yeah, so with the current marks, like Martech tools or stack which we have in the new age, the most important thing for us is to listening to our customers, like the UGC data, like that comes from multiple platforms, multiple channels, have multiple emotions and sentiments and requirements. So Martech has actually solved it, take the insights from all those platforms and all those tools, even from our emails, chats, and everything put together, it gives us segmented data that what exactly our user wants, where exactly is the problem, in which month, like recently, like now, it highlights because of the rains, the deliveries are getting delayed. The deliveries are on the very real-time basis, we know what our users are saying, what our users' problems are, and then we can actually drive the focus. So I don't have to wait for a logistics report to come into, and then I can directly see it from the live data and live tools. So this is what Martech has able to solve it for us, and because listening to our customer is the first basic principle which we adopt. Second thing is the way we see our customer base when we discuss internally as well. Let me share you. So in our conversation, we don't generally use the word target audience or where we need to target. We use like how we can make a customer that they feel like they are being seen, they are being listened to. And that changes the entire approach. Rather than like, I will target this product to this customer base. Now we are thinking, okay, like how we can ensure that each regional customer, each person, they can think that this brand belongs to them. So that level of deep thinking and like customization at individual preference level is what we are using tech for. And again, like we mentioned, like everything is data driven. We are able to do it because there is enough data available in terms of, even if they, once you they go on our app and on our site, where all they scroll, what colors they prefer, what kind of a category they click on, multiple clicks. So all this is generating data, and everyone has it. It's just that you need to segmentize, put the tools, Martech tools to understand, segmentize those data sets into multiple cohorts, and identify the cohort, which kind of a cohort you want to actually see, and then you can actually think reverse. That the overall objective is customer. Customer has to believe that they are being seen and this brand is specifically curated for them.
No, very interesting inputs there. Moving on, Neelima, the purchase journey of customers in emerging markets is a little different from metros. I mean, it's more relationship based. It takes a little longer. So typical metrics like your CPC and CTR might not work there. So what metrics would you use in such markets, for such consumers?
See, for purchase journey, what I personally, for our businesses and brand do is very simple. I have linked it back to revenue and market shares very clearly, whether it is for metro or for tier 1, tier 2. And I'll give you an example very specific to how we are doing for inverter batteries today and the tool I am using is right now omni-channel for hyperlocal, and then bringing and connecting this back to purchase, and then seeing how the journey transcends over the period of time to conversion. Our product, solar, takes typically 1.5 years of journey cycle, because there's a lot of discovery and education awareness. 6 to 9 months goes into that, because there's huge commercial, it needs a lot of assurances, subsidy, and a lot of those things. In that typical cycle, what we do is start with how much targets they have, and there are cohorts which is very clearly identified for market by market, and identified cohorts, we have complete B2B campaigns with it, which is totally hyper-localized and customized with them, with their behavior on demographics, psychographics. We have done a lot of profiling, which is helping us to really understand what are they looking from knowledge to awareness, and then when do they start discussing with the brand in terms of what are the possible solutions. So this journey, typically we start with number of leads, number of conversions we are getting only by leads. Then from the lead journey, it is going towards how much we are able to nurture it, and how much in that funnel we can translate it to conversion, to people to come back to us and saying, we really want someone to come and visit and do the complete analysis of what's the cost of the whole solution. And that's the time we have a tool called Solar Blocks where people go there, they do the complete 70 to 80% analysis they do on their own. They put their dimension of the house, they put their number of lights, bulbs, and other things which they want to run with it. They also go to GeoEarth and tag the location so that the shadow analysis can be done with it. And then they get an estimate from there. With that, then we go back to the customer, their call center which connects and then talks to them on what are the possibilities, costs, and other stuff. Typically, my measurement, CTR here doesn't work. It's very simple that how much conversion they did in terms of converting them into real business, or how much is in the funnel which is actually being nurtured, which has got potential to go into the conversion. So people who have taken solution in terms of from the app, 70 to 80% people have converted. So that is what I take as revenue potential and then convert it back to discussions. Clicks is not helping here because clicks is only to gather more information, more understanding, not on the product. Everyone today, 90% of the awareness is there on solar. But people don't know how the subsidy will work, how the solution will work. So clicks here is only helping us to get into a little more longer journey on educating them. But once they have done the solution, from there, then the CTR starts applying, then the conversion starts applying. I've just given one example. The second example is a fairly simple example on omni-channel where people go and buy inverter battery. It's a shorter. There I measure CTR, how much is the CTR, what is the conversion which is happening, what is the percentage, can I improve that percentage by getting more awareness, more banners, more promotions, more displays. And that's typically is happening on Amazon, Flipkart, and my own websites.
Got it, Neelima. Gunjan, I'm sure your product doesn't take a year, when it comes to purchasing decisions, but what are the other metrics that you look at to evaluate or measure success of a marketing campaign, beyond clicks and,
See, the KPIs you track depend on the objective you set, honestly. So I wouldn't say that CTR, CPC don't work. If it's purely a ROI driven campaign, then it will have to perform on CPC. And if it's a performance marketing driven campaign, then you have to get into performance metrics, right? If you are trying to establish your brand in a place where the brand is fairly weak or the category is weak, then CTR is a good metric because at least people are willing to see what's going on, right? But what we generally use, if it's a performance marketing campaign, then you use performance marketing KPIs, how many people watched, how many people inquired, how many people actually bought, right? But what we primarily do as CPG company is more on the brand imagery piece, right? And there our objective is to drive higher level of engagement with the brand. So therefore, to your point, yes, it goes significantly beyond CTR, right? It goes on to how many people viewed the campaign, how long did they view it, right? How many people engaged with it, right? Did someone leave a comment? Did someone share, right? So it's kind of horses for courses. So the best way, and this is how we work as a team, is to set very clear objective for the campaign, right? If you are chasing numbers, then it has to be hard-coded number-based KPIs. If you are chasing imagery, then we look at what are the best ways to see a transfer of imagery or transition of imagery, okay, over a period of time. There are other tools like BLS that you can do pre and post to see if your brand is viewed more favorably after you have run the campaign. So there are many things. In a nutshell, you set the right objective. I think the biggest challenge as marketers is what is the right objective that you set. KPIs will follow. That's the easiest ones to crack. Okay. So how do we get the objectives right?
We are running out of time, so one final question to all of you before we wrap up the session. Starting with you, Chandni. What are the top 2 or 3 learnings that you have had, as a marketer from the field in an emerging market? What would you like to share with our audience?
Yeah, one thing I'd like to share, for all aspiring marketers is that you need to stop looking at interim metrics, right? It's not about, we discuss this a lot internally also, right? We say marketers have become salespeople almost with all this, funnel optimization. They do top of the funnel, bottom of the funnel, follow up on add to carts, make sure conversions happen, right? That whole performance engine, if you have the full control on, then you can't limit to say, oh, I'm only responsible for leads and the the number of people who come on the website. It's not that anymore, right? I think if you still believe that that is my job, then you're going to be obsolete in the next few years. You need to be real about business. Marketeers are almost good-looking salesmen. We need to worry about what matters, right? And what matters is the bottom line, right? So while we do our brand campaigns and we do the BLS also, like Gunjan was saying, right? They're all important levers to move preferences. They're all important levers to, also highlight why somebody chooses you over someone else in every single transaction, because it's a repeated transaction, right? So, and you're fighting in every transaction that you have with your competition. So my learning in the last few years is that the more you worry about the real problem, which also you said, right, is identifying the objective. If you worry about that, all the other pieces will simply fall in place, right? You don't need to worry about, oh, is my CPC right? Oh, it's okay for your CPC not to be right as long as your, conversion is right, So and Google does that also, right? You optimize on your bottommost conversion. So I think, that's my tiny bit on it.
So you need to be laser focused on the objective. Rest of the things will fall into place. Great. What's your, 2 cents, your lessons from the field?
So multiple lessons. I don't know how I can concise that into 2 or 3. But first is, because we are talking about Martech, get the data right. If the data is corrupt and the data is not connected, all the Martech tools that you could, deploy on the platform, but they are not going to work. So integration of data into your tools and getting the right data in is super critical. Once that is done, half the battle is, we work with partners like Netcore, with CleverTap, but we also ensure that the funnel that goes into these tools is the right funnel. Second, within this, it's like a sub-part is, how can you also ensure a O2O2O, which is the online to online connect. That's a tough one to crack, but if you can do that, it gives you much more insight than just online behavior. Because for us, we were talking about click-through metrics, etc. For us, a person may see an ad and would convert on an online platform, or may also walk into a store. So how do you connect the two together? And once he's bought something for their loved one from an offline store, how can you connect it back to online and then, recommend the right kind of product? So that's super critical, the data piece. The other piece is implement AI, adopt AI, use tools that are now natively using AI within their ecosystem. And this is an advantage that each and everybody has today. You don't need to be a large-scale company. You can be a small startup. But if you can deploy AI the right way, then you can also win over the entire, this Martech journey, and your go-to-market can become much more faster. And third, finally, which is, I think, for all of us who are marketers, that's a strong belief: always keep the consumer in the center. And keep that consumer in the center, not the consumer that you think is.
Sure.
Yeah.
Great. Yogesh?
Yeah, I think I completely agree with Avi. that ultimately we have to be focused on what consumer wants and what and think from a perspective like what consumer needs. Like general conventional marketing approach won't work anymore in the near future in India. The key things which how we see and then what we have learned so far is building a trust with our consumer base is of a vital importance. Uh, because once you gain the trust, you'll not like they will not just buy your brand; they belong to your brand. This is what we have learned, and then again, everything we do, we see the data, we implemented AI. But the recent thing which we have learned is we need to humanize the AI and all these tools. We can't just over-optimize things basis the data and tech. So we have to be vigilant where and till what extent we need to adopt things which can be automated or there are still few things which is still good a human does it. So just for a very simple example, if you have an angry customer and he is reaching out to you and then some AI is responding to their queries, they will not be able to understand the emotions behind it and then what actually went wrong. And especially if some dress was being ordered for his friend or girlfriend or wife for a specific occasion and it's been delayed. And just like it's for birthday and tomorrow is the birthday and today it is still not received. That anger and all these things, you can't automate it by solving through an AI. The human is needed. So this is what like I think is of utmost importance that we need to understand to what extent we need to automate and how to effectively use all this data and Martech to actually solve your problem in a best way possible.
And then humans have to complement technology, right?
Yeah, so
Definitely
it is given like since now it's the AI world, AI we are adopting AI, but AI cannot
replace humans for sure.
Replace humans everywhere.
Neelima, finally, quickly, your lesson, a practical lesson that you've learned.
I think for me, it's two things which I have learned over the period of time, sales marketing experience. It's very important to have a clear business objective when you're starting anything. And a lot of time, marketing objectives, just being pure play, building brand doesn't help. So it's very important that define your marketing objectives and link it back to the business objective. And to me, that's the right marketing objective. Number two is, in the era of Martech, don't be obsessed that I must do this, I must use AI, I must do it. AI and all the tools which is available is to facilitate or aid you with better data analysis, better cohort management, better personalization tools which is now available. Use them to reach or understand your consumer better. So use all those methods which can help your understanding of the consumer cohort better or customer cohort better. The last I would say is, if you're looking for real impact, hyper-localize and go omni-channel. So these are the two things which in the real life I have seen far more efficient and beneficial than actually getting little lazy on bigger campaigns, bigger plans, but not linked back to where the conversion is going to happen. If it's online, then also hyper-contextualize and hyper-localize. If it is offline, even more important to hyper-localize, contextualize, and personalize. And then if you can actually straddle between O to O to O, it's the best combination you can hit towards the ROI. So these are my 2 to 3 things I would suggest.
Thank you so much. Final comments from you, Gunjan, before we wrap up this session.
Yeah, honestly, I won't say that I've learned yet. I'm still learning, especially in the context of Tier 2, Tier 3, Martech, and all that stuff. But some of the things that I believe from whatever I've been experiencing is, I think the real growth and the drive for India is going to come out of Tier 2 and Tier 3, what we loosely call as Bharat. So Bharat is going to fuel the next India for us. And I'm a strong believer in that, and therefore a large part of my energy and my team's energy goes behind solving the opportunities for this cohort. And the second thing is, I think Martech has evolved very fast, and it's upon us as marketing leaders and marketing community to really adapt at the same pace as the technology is evolving. And I'm having fun doing a lot of pilots, and I hope all of us can collectively do many more experiments and build on each other's learnings, and we can have this forum again in a year's time where we can share what we learned. Yeah. So that would be all I would say.
Great. Thank you so much. I think the bottom line from this panel discussion is that Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities definitely, present a great opportunity, growth opportunity for brands. But, the key could lie in building trust rather than funnels. Thank you so much. With this, we wrap up this session. Thank you.